The ultimatum. The vast chamber of the Galactic Hegemony's High Council fell silent as the human ambassador strode forward. Ambassador Elena Chen's footsteps echoed off the polished obsidian floors, her determined gait belying the gravity of her mission. Thousands of alien eyes followed her progress, a sea of tentacles, appendages, and sensory organs, all focused on this lone representative of humanity. Elena stopped before the towering dais, where the hegemony's ruling triumvirate perched. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. This moment would define the future of her species, and quite possibly the fate of the galaxy itself. Esteemed members of the Galactic Hegemony, Elena's voice rang out, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. I come before you today not as a supplicant, but as a harbinger. Murmurs rippled through the assembled dignitaries. The Arxer delegate, a towering insectoid, clicked its mandibles in displeasure. The Zhoreki representative's bioluminescent patches flashed a warning pattern. Elena continued, her voice steady and firm. For too long, humanity has watched as your hegemony has expanded unchecked across the stars. We've witnessed the subjugation of countless species, the strip mining of entire worlds, and the eradication of cultures that span millennia. The central figure of the triumvirate, High Arbiter Scathar, leaned forward. Its gelatinous form rippled with barely contained anger. You dare lecture us on our methods, human? Your species is but an infant in the cosmic order. You should be grateful we've allowed you to retain your autonomy thus far. A cold smile played across Elena's lips. And that, High Arbiter, is precisely why I'm here today. Humanity will no longer stand idly by as you reshape the galaxy in your image. We've come to deliver an ultimatum. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of outrage. Delegates shouted, roared, and emitted pheromones of anger and disbelief. High Arbiter Scathar raised a tentacle, and silence fell once more. An ultimatum. Scathar's voice dripped with condescension. And what, pray tell, could your pitiful species possibly threaten us with? Elena's eyes blazed with intensity. Cease your expansion. Withdraw from the territories you've unjustly claimed. Grant independence to the species you've enslaved. If you do not comply within one standard galactic cycle, the consequences will be severe. Laughter echoed through the chamber, a discordant symphony of alien mirth. Even the typically stoic Meridians were visibly amused, their crystalline bodies vibrating with mocking frequencies. High Arbiter Skthar's form rippled with what passed for laughter in its species. And if we refuse this generous offer, will you wage war against us with your handful of colonies and primitive starships? Elena's expression remained impassive. If you refuse, your worlds will burn. Your fleets will be scattered to the cosmic winds. Your empire, built on the bones of 1,000 civilizations, will crumble to dust. The laughter died away, replaced by a tense silence. The assembled delegates glanced at one another, uncertain whether to be outraged or unnerved by the human's audacity. Scathar's voice lowered to a dangerous whisper. You threaten us with destruction. You, whose homeworld we could crush beneath our heel with but a fraction of our might. We do not make threats, High Arbiter, Elena replied calmly. We make promises. Humanity has tolerated your tyranny for far too long. We've watched, we've learned, and we've prepared. The hegemony believes it knows the full extent of our capabilities. I assure you, you do not. A new voice cut through the tension. Felxer, the Zhoreki representative, stepped forward. His bioluminescent patches pulsed with curiosity. What assurances do we have that your words are anything more than empty bravado? Elena turned to address the Zhoreki. You need no assurances beyond this. If the hegemony does not comply with our demands, you will witness firsthand the full extent of humanity's resolve. We may be young in your eyes, but we have learned much in our brief time among the stars. We've seen the atrocities committed in the name of your cosmic order, and we vowed never to let such horrors befall our own people. The Arxer delegate chittered loudly. Your species is barely able to maintain a handful of colonies beyond your home system. How could you possibly hope to stand against the combined might of the hegemony? A ghost of a smile played across Elena's lips. It's true, our visible presence in the galaxy is limited, but appearances can be deceiving. We've spent decades preparing for this moment, developing technologies and strategies that will level the playing field. The hegemony has grown complacent in its power, believing no force in the universe could challenge its dominion. That complacency will be your undoing. High Arbiters, Cathar's gelatinous form roiled with barely contained fury. You speak of technologies beyond your known capabilities. Do you expect us to believe you've somehow leapfrogged centuries of development in mere decades? Believe what you will, High Arbiter, Elena replied. But know this, humanity has always excelled at adaptation and innovation. We've studied your strengths, your weaknesses, and we've prepared accordingly. Our warriors train in simulations based on your tactics. Our scientists have reverse-engineered and improved upon captured hegemony technology. We are not the primitive species you believe us to be. A low murmur spread through the chamber as the delegates processed this information. Some scoffed at the claims, while others began to look worried. Felxer, the Joreki representative, spoke again. Even if what you say is true, surely you must realize the cost of such a conflict. Countless lives would be lost on both sides. Is that a price your species is willing to pay? Elena's expression hardened. We understand the cost all too well. But we've seen the price of inaction. The subjugation and suffering of countless species under hegemony rule. Humanity has always stood against tyranny, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. We would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. High Arbiter Skthar's voice boomed through the chamber. Enough of this foolishness. You come before us with grandiose claims and empty threats. The hegemony has stood for millennia, and it will not be cowed by the posturing of a fledgling species. Then you leave us no choice, Elena said, her voice filled with quiet determination. Remember this moment, High Arbiter. Remember that we came to you in peace, offering a chance to avoid bloodshed. What follows is on your hands. With that, Elena turned and began walking back down the long aisle of the chamber. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the lone human made her exit. Just before reaching the massive doors, Elena paused and turned back to face the triumvirate. One standard galactic cycle, High Arbiter. That's all the time you have to reconsider your position. When the cycle ends, humanity will act, and the galaxy will never be the same. The doors swung open, and Ambassador Elena Chen stepped through, leaving a chamber full of bewildered, angry, and increasingly unsettled alien diplomats in her wake. As the doors closed behind her, Elena allowed herself a small sigh of relief. She had delivered humanity's message, knowing full well that the hegemony was unlikely to heed the warning. Now, the real work would begin. Outside the council chamber, Elena was met by her aide, Marcus Reeves. His normally cheerful face was drawn with tension. "How did it go?" he asked in a low voice as they hurried through the ornate corridors of the hegemony's seat of power. "About as well as we expected," Elena replied grimly. "They laughed, they threatened, they dismissed, but I saw something in their eyes, Marcus. Beneath the arrogance and the snide remarks, there was a flicker of doubt." Marcus nodded. "That's something, at least. Do you think it will be enough to make them reconsider?" Elena shook her head. "No, they're too set in their ways, too convinced of their own superiority. But that seed of doubt, that's what we needed to plant. It will grow in the coming days, and when we strike, it will blossom into full-blown panic." They reached their shuttle, a sleek vessel that looked positively primitive next to the grandiose hegemony ships docked nearby. As they boarded, Elena's communicator chirped. She answered, and a holographic image of Fleet Admiral Yuki Tanaka appeared. "Ambassador," Tanaka said, her weathered face etched with concern. "I take it from your expression that the hegemony was less than receptive to our ultimatum." Elena nodded. "As expected, Admiral. They're not going to back down. We need to proceed with the next phase of the operation." Tanaka's expression hardened. "Understood. I'll alert all commands to begin final preparations. The hegemony has no idea what's coming their way. As the shuttle lifted off, leaving the glittering capital of the galactic hegemony behind, Alina gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's hidden fleets were mobilizing, advanced weapons were being brought online, and covert operatives were moving into position. The hegemony believed they were dealing with a minor annoyance, a young species overreaching its bounds. They had no idea that they had just set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. As their shuttle jumped to faster-than-light travel, Alina closed her eyes and whispered a quiet prayer. May the stars forgive us for what we're about to do. The ultimatum had been delivered. Now, humanity would show the galaxy exactly what it was capable of when pushed too far. The preparation, 2,000 words. Deep within the asteroid belt of the Proxima Centauri system, hidden from prying eyes and sensor suites, humanity's true might was stirring to life. The massive hollowed-out asteroid designated Fortress Alpha buzzed with activity as soldiers, engineers, and strategists worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming conflict. Fleet Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood before a holographic display of the galaxy, her weathered face illuminated by the swirling colors of star systems and nebula. She watched as tiny indicators representing human fleets and assets blinked to life across the map, emerging from their hidden bases and stealth fields. Status report, Tanaka barked, her eyes never leaving the display. Colonel Alexei Volkov, her chief of operations, stepped forward. All fleet elements are reporting ready, Admiral. The Phantom Corps has successfully infiltrated key hegemony systems, and our quantum entanglement communication network is fully operational. Tanaka nodded, a grim smile playing across her lips. And what of Project Prometheus? Volkov's expression tightened. The weapon is ready, Admiral, but I must once again voice my concerns about its use. The potential for collateral damage is. Noted, Colonel. Tanaka cut him off. But we've been over this. The hegemony leaves us no choice. Sometimes, to save the forest, you must burn away the rot. As if on cue, a new hologram flickered to life beside them. It was Ambassador Alina Chen, her face drawn with exhaustion after her confrontation with the Hegemony Council. Admiral, Alina greeted. I'm en route back to Fortress Alpha. The hegemony reacted exactly as we predicted. They've dismissed our ultimatum and are likely preparing a punitive expedition as we speak. Tanaka's eyes narrowed. Then we stick to the plan. Alina, I need you to activate our sleeper agents within the hegemony subject races. It's time to light the fuse of rebellion across their empire. Alina nodded solemnly. Understood. I'll make the calls as soon as I'm back. May the stars watch over us all. As Alina's hologram winked out, Tanaka turned back to the galactic display. She zoomed in on Earth, a tiny blue marble that seemed so insignificant against the vast backdrop of space. Everything we've worked for comes down to this, she murmured. Humanity's last, best hope. On the other side of the galaxy, aboard the hegemony's flagship, Eternal Dominion, High Arbiter Skthar seethed with rage. Its gelatinous form roiled and bubbled as it addressed the assembled war council. The audacity of these humans, Skthar bellowed, to threaten us, the galactic hegemony, with destruction. They must be taught the price of such insolence. General Vexkor, the hegemony's top military strategist, stepped forward. The insectoid's compound eyes glittered with cold calculation. High Arbiter, while I agree that the humans must be put in their place, I advise caution. Their ultimatum was unusually confident for such a young species. Skithar's form rippled with dismissive laughter. You give these primitives too much credit, General. What could they possibly have that could threaten our dominion? Vexkor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps nothing, High Arbiter. But in my experience, it is unwise to underestimate an enemy, no matter how small they may appear. Before Skthar could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A junior officer rushed into the war room, its tentacles quivering with agitation. High Arbiter, We're receiving reports of simultaneous uprisings on multiple subject worlds. Talcaris Prime, Zeta Reticuli, Novus Tellus. They're all in open revolt. Scathar's form pulsed with shock and anger. Impossible. How could this happen without our knowledge? General Vexcor's compound eyes narrowed. It seems, High Arbiter, that the humans may have been busier than we realized. This is no coincidence. They're coordinating these rebellions. As the War Council erupted into chaos, Scathar felt a flicker of something it had not experienced in centuries. Doubt. Back on Fortress Alpha, Alina Chen hurried through the bustling corridors, her footsteps echoing off the metal walls. She burst into the command center, where Admiral Tanaka and her staff were gathered around the holographic display. "It's done," Alina announced, slightly out of breath. "Our agents have triggered uprisings across the hegemony. Their forces will be spread thin trying to maintain control." Tanaka nodded approvingly. "Excellent work, Ambassador. Now, we move to Phase 2. She turned to Colonel Volkov. "Activate the Phantom Core. It's time to show the hegemony what we're really capable of." Volkov saluted and moved to a nearby console. With a few quick commands, encrypted signals were sent across the vastness of space, activating humanity's most elite and secretive fighting force. In the shadows of a bustling hegemony space station orbiting Talcaris Prime, a nondescript maintenance worker suddenly stiffened. His eyes glazed over for a moment as the activation signal coursed through his neural implants. In an instant, years of deep cover fell away, replaced by the razor-sharp focus of a highly trained operative. Captain Sarah Hawkins of the Phantom Corps flexed her fingers, feeling the nanotechnology in her body coming to life. She tapped her communicator, disguised as a simple piece of jewelry. "Spectre Team, this is Phantom Lead. Operation Trojan Horse is a go. I say again, Trojan Horse is a go." Across the station, 5 other workers received the message. Within minutes, they had gathered at a predetermined location, their bodies and minds primed for action. Sarah addressed her team, her voice low but intense. "You all know the mission. We take control of this station, disable its defenses, and open the way for our fleet. The hegemony thinks this is just another rebellion. We're going to show them how wrong they are." The team moved with practiced efficiency, their augmented bodies allowing them to overpower the station's security with ease. Alarms blared, but it was already too late. Sarah interfaced with the station's main computer, her neural implants allowing her to bypass security protocols that would have taken an army of hackers hours to crack. As the last firewall fell, Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. "Phantom Lead to Fortress Alpha. The back door is open. Bring the pain." Admiral Tanaka watched as the indicator for Talcaris Station turned from red to green on her display. Similar reports were coming in from across hegemony space as Phantom Corps teams seized control of key installations. "Now," Tanaka said softly, "we show them what humanity is truly capable of." She turned to her communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Operation Firestorm begins now." Across the galaxy, hidden shipyards burst into activity. Vessels that had been carefully concealed for years emerged from asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and even the coronas of stars. The ships were unlike anything the hegemony had ever seen, sleek, dark, and virtually undetectable to conventional sensors. At the heart of each fleet was a Prometheus-class dreadnought, a vessel that represented the pinnacle of human military technology. These massive ships bristled with weapons that could reduce planets to ash, protected by shield systems reverse-engineered from a dozen alien races. As the human fleets converged on hegemony space, Admiral Tanaka addressed her forces. Her words were broadcast to every ship, every soldier, every agent in the field. "Men and women of Earth and her colonies, the moment we have prepared for is upon us. For too long, we have watched as the galactic hegemony has oppressed and exploited countless species across the stars. Today, we say no more." Tanaka's voice grew stronger, filled with conviction. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for every sentient being that has suffered under hegemony rule. We fight for the right of all species to determine their own destiny. We fight for a future where the galaxy is free from tyranny. She paused, her next words heavy with the weight of responsibility. Make no mistake, this will be a battle unlike any humanity has ever faced. The hegemony's forces outnumber us, and they will fight with the desperation of a regime that fears losing its grip on power. But we have something they lack: the unbreakable spirit of humanity. Tanaka's eyes blazed with determination. We are the descendants of those who crossed oceans, who conquered the skies, who reached for the stars. In our veins runs the blood of explorers, innovators, and freedom fighters. The hegemony believes us to be weak, primitive, easily cowed. Today, we prove them wrong. Her voice rose to a crescendo. For Earth, for freedom, for the future of all sentient life in the galaxy, Operation Firestorm begins now. A resounding cheer echoed through every ship and base as humanity's forces surged forward, ready to challenge the might of an empire that spanned the stars. In the hegemony war room, chaos reigned. Reports of attacks on key installations poured in faster than they could be processed. The holographic display of hegemony territory was a sea of red alert indicators. High Arbiter Skathar's gelatinous form quivered with rage and disbelief. How is this possible? Where did these humans get such advanced technology? Such numbers? General Vexcor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. High Arbiter, we're detecting multiple fleets converging on our core systems. They're ships. They're like nothing we've ever encountered. Our sensors can barely track them. Skathar's voice rose to a shriek. Impossible. Mobilize every ship we have. Crush these upstart primitives. As the hegemony's vast war machine lumbered into action, Vexcor couldn't shake a growing sense of dread. The humans had prepared for this moment with a thoroughness and foresight that was terrifying in its implications. For the first time in his long military career, the general wondered if they had finally encountered a foe that could match, or even exceed, the might of the galactic hegemony. The stage was set. Humanity's carefully laid plans were in motion. As the first shots of the war streaked across the void of space, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The hegemony was about to learn that humanity was far more than just another primitive species to be conquered and exploited. They were about to face the full, terrible wrath of a species that had spent decades preparing for this very moment. The storm was upon them, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first strike. The void of space erupted in a dazzling display of destructive power as humanity's hidden fleets engaged the hegemony's forward defenses. Sleek, dark human ships danced between lumbering hegemony cruisers, their advanced weapons tearing through shields and armor with terrifying efficiency. Aboard the HS Defiant, the flagship of humanity's Alpha Fleet, Captain Zoran Nguyen watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The ship's holographic display showed human forces advancing on multiple fronts, catching the hegemony completely off guard. Status report, Zora commanded, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Her XO, Commander Jake Torres, responded promptly. All ships reporting optimal performance, Captain. Phantom Corps teams have successfully disabled key hegemony defense grids in sectors 7 through 13. Our Wraith-class stealth frigates are penetrating deep into enemy territory, targeting command and control nodes. Zara nodded, a tight smile on her face. And the Prometheus weapon. Charging, Captain. It will be ready for deployment in approximately 30 minutes. The captain's expression hardened. Good. Relay to all ships. Press the advantage. Show no mercy, but remember our primary objectives. We're here to cripple the hegemony's war machine, not to annihilate entire species. As the Defiant surged forward, its advanced shields shrugging off hegemony weapons fire, Zara couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and apprehension. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades, but the sheer scale of the conflict was still staggering. Deep in hegemony space, on the mineral-rich world of Novus Tellus, the long-oppressed Tellurian species rose up in open revolt. Led by human-trained insurgents, the crystal-based lifeforms overwhelmed their hegemony overlords with surprising speed and ferocity. Amidst the chaos, a lone figure moved with purpose through the shattered remains of the planetary capital. Major Eli Reeves of the Phantom Corps navigated the crystalline structures with ease, his body augmented with cutting-edge technology that allowed him to interface directly with Tellurian systems. Eli reached his destination, the planet's primary communication hub. With a thought, he connected to the facility's mainframe, his neural implants effortlessly bypassing layers of alien encryption. Fortress Alpha, this is Phantom 3, Eli subvocalized, the message racing across the quantum entanglement network. Novus Tellus is secure. Uploading hegemony strategic data now. Back on Fortress Alpha, Admiral Tanaka received the transmission with a nod of approval. Excellent work, Major. This intel will be crucial for our next phase. Hold position and continue to coordinate with the Tellurian resistance. As she digested the new information, Tanaka turned to her staff. The hegemony's response is slower than anticipated. They're struggling to coordinate their forces across multiple fronts. It's time to push harder. She keyed her comm system. All fleets, this is Admiral Tanaka. Execute Operation Sundering. I repeat, Operation Sundering is a go. In the Zeta Reticuli system, home to one of the hegemony's largest shipyards, alarms blared as human ships suddenly materialized from what seemed like thin air. The Wraith-class stealth frigates, previously undetectable, now revealed themselves in a coordinated strike. Lieutenant Commander Aisha Kazemi, leading the assault from the HSS Shadowblade, felt a surge of adrenaline as her ship decloaked. All units, weapons free. Take out those dry docks and assembly platforms. Don't let a single ship under construction survive. The human fleet struck with surgical precision, their advanced targeting systems allowing them to cripple hegemony vessels still in their berths. Antimatter torpedoes and graviton beams lashed out, reducing the pride of the hegemony's shipbuilding capability to twisted, molten wreckage. As hegemony reinforcements began to arrive, Aisha allowed herself a fierce grin. All right, people, time for Phase 2. Activate the Nexus disruptors. From the belly of each human ship, a strange device emerged. As they powered up, reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them. Suddenly, the arriving hegemony ships found themselves unable to enter faster-than-light travel or communicate with their home bases. Beautiful, Aisha murmured as she watched the hegemony forces flail in confusion. The Nexus disruptors, one of humanity's most closely guarded technological achievements, had just changed the face of space warfare forever. On the hegemony throne world of Apex Prime, High Arbiter Scathar's gelatinous form roiled with a mixture of rage and fear. The war room was in chaos, with reports of defeats and uprisings pouring in from across the Empire. How? Scar bellowed, its voice modulator struggling to convey the depth of its fury. How could these primitives have developed such technology without our knowledge? General Vexicor, looking more haggard by the moment, clicked his mandibles nervously. High Arbiter, it appears we gravely underestimated the humans. Their technological level is far beyond what we believed possible. And these coordinated uprisings, they must have been planning this for years, if not decades. Before Scathar could respond, a junior officer burst into the room, its tentacles writhing in agitation. High Arbiter, we've lost contact with the Zeta Reticuli shipyards, and we're receiving reports of some kind of anomaly spreading through nearby systems. Ships are unable to enter FTL or communicate over long distances. Scathar's form pulsed with shock. Impossible. Nothing can disrupt the quantum-entangled nexus. It's the backbone of our entire empire. General Vexcor's compound eyes narrowed. It seems, High Arbiter, that the impossible has become possible. We are facing an enemy unlike any we have ever encountered. As the implications sank in, Scathar felt something it had not experienced in millennia. genuine fear. Back aboard the HS Defiant, Captain Zara Nguyen received the latest updates with grim satisfaction. The hegemony was reeling, struggling to respond to attacks coming from all directions, but she knew the real test was yet to come. "Captain," Commander Torres called out, his voice tense. "The Prometheus weapon is fully charged and ready for deployment." Zara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "Patch me through to Admiral Tanaka. This isn't a decision I can make alone." Moments later, Admiral Tanaka's hologram appeared on the bridge. Her face was etched with the strain of command, but her eyes burned with determination. "Captain Nguyen," Tanaka acknowledged. "I take it the Prometheus is ready." Zara nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Awaiting your final authorization." Tanaka was silent for a long moment, the weight of the decision visible in her expression. Finally, she spoke. "The hegemony leaves us no choice. They would see our worlds burn, our people enslaved. We must show them the consequences of their actions." She straightened, her voice firm. "Captain Nguyen, you are hereby authorized to deploy the Prometheus weapon. May the stars forgive us." As the hologram winked out, Zara turned to her crew. Their faces were a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. They all knew the awesome, terrible power they were about to unleash. Target locked on the hegemony's primary fleet anchorage in the Sirius system, the weapons officer reported. Zara closed her eyes for a brief moment, offering a silent prayer to whatever forces might be listening. Then her eyes snapped open, blazing with resolve. "Fire!" The Defiant shuddered as the Prometheus weapon activated. A beam of pure, scintillating energy lanced out across the void, crossing light years in an instant. On screens across the ship, the crew watched in awe as the beam struck its target. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to fold and twist around the hegemony anchorage. Ships, stations, and even the fabric of space-time began to warp and distort. In a blinding flash, the entire system was engulfed in a maelstrom of uncontrolled energy. When the light faded and sensors could once again penetrate the area, gasps of shock echoed across the bridge. Where once had been a vast fleet anchorage, home to thousands of hegemony warships, there was now nothing. No debris, no radiation signature, not even a distortion in the background radiation of space. It was as if that section of the universe had simply ceased to exist. "Mother of Mercy," Commander Torres whispered, his face pale. "What have we done?" Zara's voice was steady, but there was a tremor in her hands as she gripped the arms of her command chair. "We've done what we had to do, Commander. May it be enough to bring this war to a swift end." Across hegemony space, the news of the Sirius anchorage's destruction spread like wildfire. Entire species, long subjugated by hegemony rule, looked to the stars with a mixture of hope and fear. The undefeatable conquerors had been bloodied, their illusion of invincibility shattered. On 1,000 worlds, resistance movements that had long operated in the shadows now burst into the open. Inspired by humanity's example and aided by their advanced technology, oppressed species rose up against their hegemony overlords. The Galactic Hegemony, an empire that had stood unchallenged for millennia, now found itself fighting for its very survival. And at the heart of this galactic upheaval stood humanity, a species the hegemony had dismissed as primitive upstarts mere days ago. As reports of the Prometheus weapon's devastation reached apex prime, High Arbiter Scathar's gelatinous form quivered with a mixture of rage and terror. For the first time in its long existence, it faced the very real possibility of defeat. "General Vexcor," Scathar's voice was uncharacteristically subdued. "What are our options?" The insectoid general's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep distress. "High Arbiter, I believe we must consider the possibility of seeking terms with the humans. The alternative may well be the complete destruction of our civilization." As the words hung in the air, a terrible silence fell over the hegemony war room. The unthinkable had happened. The mighty galactic hegemony was contemplating surrender to a species it had, mere days ago, considered barely worthy of notice. In the vast expanse of space, humanity's fleets pressed their advantage, driving deeper into hegemony territory. The first strike had been delivered, and it had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. But the war was far from over, and the greatest challenges and decisions still lay ahead. The galaxy held its collective breath, waiting to see what this upstart species from a backwater planet would do next. Humanity had proven its might, but could it also show wisdom and restraint in victory? The fate of countless civilizations hung in the balance, and the next moves would determine the shape of the galaxy for millennia to come. The turning tide. The aftermath of the Prometheus weapons deployment sent shockwaves across the galaxy. As news of the Sirius Anchorage's obliteration spread, the carefully constructed facade of hegemony invincibility crumbled. Across 1,000 worlds, subjugated species looked to the stars with newfound hope and fear. On Fortress Alpha, Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood before a holographic display of the galaxy, watching as the tide of battle shifted in humanity's favor. Yet her expression was grim, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. "Status report," she commanded, her voice tight with tension. Colonel Alexei Volkov stepped forward, his face etched with a mixture of awe and concern. "The hegemony is in disarray, Admiral. Their command and control structure is collapsing. We're seeing widespread rebellions on at least 30% of their subject worlds." Tanaka nodded, her eyes never leaving the display. "And the Prometheus weapon?" Volkov hesitated before responding. "It exceeded all expectations, Admiral. The power it unleashed was beyond anything we anticipated. Some of our scientists are expressing concerns about potential long-term effects on the fabric of spacetime in the target area." A heavy silence fell over the command center. The Prometheus weapon had given humanity the edge it needed, but at what cost? Tanaka's voice was quiet but firm when she spoke. "We've opened Pandora's box, Colonel. Now we must deal with the consequences." She turned to face her staff, her eyes blazing with determination. "But we cannot falter now. The hegemony is on the back foot, but they're far from defeated. We push forward, but with caution. The Prometheus is to be considered a weapon of absolute last resort from this point forward." As her orders were relayed across the human fleets, Tanaka couldn't shake a nagging sense of unease. They had struck a mighty blow against the hegemony, but the war was far from over, and the greatest challenges might yet lie ahead. On the hegemony throne world of Apex Prime, chaos reigned. The once orderly corridors of the Imperial Palace now echoed with panicked shouts and the hurried footsteps of officials trying to make sense of the disaster that had befallen them. In the heart of the storm, High Arbiter Skathar's gelatinous form roiled with a mixture of rage and terror. Its most trusted advisors had gathered in the war room, their faces, or equivalent sensory organs, etched with fear and disbelief. How? Skathar's voice modulator struggled to convey the depth of its fury. How could these upstart primitives possess such power? An entire fleet anchorage, simply erased from existence. General Vexkor, his kitten dulled with stress, clicked his mandibles nervously. "High Arbiter, we gravely underestimated the humans. Their technological advancement, their strategic acumen, it all points to years, perhaps decades of careful planning and preparation." Before Skathar could respond, the doors to the war room burst open. A junior officer, its tentacles writhing in agitation, rushed in. "High Arbiter, we've lost contact with the Zeta Reticuli sector, and reports are coming in of mass uprisings on dozens of subject worlds." Skathar's form pulsed with shock. "Impossible. The Nexus cannot be disrupted. It's the backbone of our entire empire." General Vexkor's compound eyes narrowed. "It seems, High Arbiter, that the impossible has become possible. We are facing an enemy unlike any we have ever encountered." As the implications sank in, Skathar felt something it had not experienced in millennia: genuine fear. The galactic hegemony, which had stood unchallenged for eons, now faced an existential threat from a species it had dismissed as insignificant mere days ago. Aboard the HS Defiant, Captain Zara Nguyen watched the tactical display with a mixture of satisfaction and unease. The hegemony fleets were in disarray, their once coordinated movements now erratic and desperate. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the tension thrumming through her body. Commander Jake Torres responded promptly. "The hegemony's 7th Fleet is in full retreat, Captain. Our forces have secured control of the Orion Arm Gateway. Phantom Corps teams report successful sabotage operations on 3 major hegemony supply depots." Zara nodded, allowing herself a small smile. "Excellent. And the Prometheus?" Torres' expression tightened. "Fully recharged, Captain. But there are concerns among the science team about using it again. The readings from the Sirius deployment are troubling." Before Zara could respond, a priority communication came through. Admiral Tanaka's hologram materialized on the bridge, her face grave. "Captain Nguyen, we have a situation. Our long-range sensors have detected a massive energy buildup in the hegemony core systems. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to deploy some kind of super weapon of their own." Zara's blood ran cold. "A countermeasure to the Prometheus?" Tanaka shook her head. "We're not sure. But whatever it is, it's big, and it's aimed right at Earth. I'm diverting the bulk of our forces to intercept, but the Defiant is closest. You need to buy us time." As the hologram winked out, Zara turned to her crew. Their faces were a mixture of determination and fear. They all knew what was at stake. "You heard the Admiral." Zara's voice rang out, clear and strong. "Plot a course for the hegemony core systems. Maximum speed. We're going to show these bastards that humanity isn't so easily cowed." As the Defiant surged forward, tearing a hole in the fabric of space-time, Zara couldn't help but wonder if they were racing towards their finest hour or their final stand. On the fringes of hegemony space, a lone figure moved with purpose through the shadows of a long-abandoned space station. Major Eli Reeves of the Phantom Corps interfaced directly with the ancient systems, his neural implants decoding encryption that had stymied the greatest minds in the galaxy for centuries. "Jackpot," Eli whispered as the station's databases yielded their secrets. "Fortress Alpha, this is Phantom 3. You're not going to believe what I found." Back on Fortress Alpha, Admiral Tanaka leaned forward, her eyes intent on the data streaming in. "My God," she breathed. "Is this accurate, Major?" Eli's voice was grim. "Confirmed, Admiral. The hegemony's been sitting on this for millennia. A weapon capable of inducing artificial supernovas. They call it the Star Killer." Tanaka's mind raced with the implications, and they're preparing to use it on Earth. "Major, we need everything you can find on this weapon. Weaknesses, deployment methods, anything." As Eli worked feverishly to extract every scrap of data, Tanaka turned to her staff. "Alert all commands. We're initiating Operation Shadowfall. May the stars watch over us all." In the heart of hegemony space, aboard the colossal battle station that housed the Star Killer, High Arbiter Scathar watched with grim satisfaction as the weapon powered up. Its gelatinous form quivered with anticipation. "Let the humans taste true power." Scathar's voice dripped with malice. "When their homeworld burns, they will learn the price of defying the hegemony." General Vexcor, overseeing the weapon's activation, felt a flicker of unease. "High Arbiter, are we certain this is wise? The use of such a weapon could have unforeseen consequences across the galaxy." Scathar's form rippled with anger. "You dare question me, General. The hegemony's supremacy must be maintained at all costs. Activate the Star Killer. Let the galaxy witness the price of rebellion." As the massive weapon began to hum with terrifying power, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Vexcor's compound eyes widened in shock. "High Arbiter, human ships have breached our defensive perimeter." On the main view screen, a sleek, dark vessel appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. The HSS Defiant had arrived, leading the charge of a human battle group that materialized from the void like avenging specters. Aboard the Defiant, Captain Zara Nguyen's voice rang out clear and strong. All ships, engage at will. Take out that weapon at all costs. The void of space erupted in a dazzling display of destructive power as human and hegemony ships clashed. The Defiant danced between enemy vessels, its advanced weapons tearing through shields and armor with terrifying efficiency. But the hegemony's numbers were vast, and the Star Killer loomed ever closer to activation. As Zara watched her ships take hit after hit, she knew drastic action was needed. "Commander Torres," she called out, her voice tight with tension. "Prep the Prometheus. We have no choice." Torres's face paled, but he nodded grimly. "Aye, Captain." Prometheus charging. As the battle raged around them, the Defiant's Prometheus weapon hummed to life. Zara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Target the Star Killer. Fire when ready." The ship shuddered as the Prometheus activated, a beam of pure, reality-warping energy lancing out across the void. It struck the Star Killer dead center, and for a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, chaos erupted. The Star Killer's containment fields collapsed, its unimaginable energies released in a cataclysmic explosion. Space itself seemed to twist and warp, light bending in impossible ways. "All ships, emergency jump." Zara yelled as the Defiant was buffeted by waves of energy. "Get us out of here." As human and hegemony ships alike fled the expanding maelstrom, a shockwave of unimaginable power swept through the system. When it cleared, where once had been the heart of hegemony power, there was now nothing. And vast, empty void, as if that section of space had simply ceased to exist. Aboard the Defiant, now safely distant from the catastrophe, a stunned silence fell over the bridge. Commander Torres was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. "Captain, what have we done?" Zara stared at the sensor readings, her face pale. "We've changed the face of the galaxy, Commander. For better or worse, nothing will ever be the same." As reports of the Star Killer's destruction spread across hegemony space, the Empire's grip on its subject worlds crumbled. Entire species, long oppressed, rose up in open rebellion. The galactic hegemony, which had stood for millennia, was collapsing. But as the dust settled, and the true scope of the destruction became clear, a new fear began to spread. The weapons wielded in this war, both human and hegemony, had torn holes in the very fabric of space-time. What would be the long-term consequences of such power unleashed? As Captain Zara Nguyen looked out at the stars, she couldn't shake the feeling that while they had won the battle, the true test of humanity's resolve was yet to come. The galaxy had been reshaped, and humanity now stood at a crossroads. Would they rise to the challenge of shepherding a new era of peace and cooperation? Or would they succumb to the same thirst for power that had corrupted the hegemony? The tide had turned, but the future remained uncertain. As the Defiant set course for Earth, Zara knew that the hardest decisions and the greatest challenges still lay ahead. The galaxy watched and waited, wondering what this upstart species from a backwater planet would do next. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of humanity had begun. The final stand. The galaxy held its breath in the aftermath of the Star Killer's destruction. The void left by the hegemony's fall echoed with the cries of liberation and the chaos of uncertainty. Humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, now stood at the center of a cosmic revolution. On Earth, the streets of every major city were filled with a mixture of celebration and apprehension. Holographic displays showed the latest updates from the front lines, where human fleets were pushing deeper into former hegemony space. In the halls of the United Earth Government, leaders from across the planet gathered for an emergency session. The atmosphere was tense, the weight of responsibility heavy on every shoulder. President Adama Okafor, a tall woman with eyes that sparkled with intelligence and determination, addressed the assembly. "My fellow leaders, we stand at a crossroads. The hegemony is on the brink of collapse, but the power we've unleashed It comes with grave responsibilities. She gestured to a holographic display showing the vast emptiness where the Star Killer had once been. The Prometheus weapon and the Star Killer have torn holes in the very fabric of space-time. Our scientists warn of potential long-term consequences that could affect the entire galaxy. A murmur ran through the assembled leaders. Chancellor Zhang of the Asia-Pacific Coalition spoke up, his voice trembling slightly. Are you suggesting we halt our advance? After everything we've sacrificed? Okafor shook her head. No, Chancellor. We cannot stop now. But we must be mindful of the power we wield. The galaxy looks to us now, not as conquerors, but as liberators. We must prove ourselves worthy of that trust. As the debate raged on, a priority communication came through. Admiral Yuki Tanaka's hologram materialized in the center of the chamber, her face grave. Madam President, leaders of Earth, we have a situation. Our forces have reached the hegemony throne world of Apex Prime, but something's wrong. We're detecting massive energy readings, unlike anything we've ever seen. Okafor's eyes narrowed. Explain, Admiral. Tanaka's hologram flickered as she pulled up a tactical display. It appears the hegemony has activated some kind of doomsday device. If our readings are correct, it has the potential to create a chain reaction that could destabilize spacetime across the entire galaxy. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Okafor was the first to recover, her voice steady as she asked, "Options, Admiral." Tanaka's expression was grim. "We're mobilizing every ship we have. But, Madam President, I don't think it will be enough. Not against something like this." Okafor closed her eyes for a moment, the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders. When she opened them, they blazed with determination. "Then we make our stand here, Admiral. Humanity brought down the hegemony. Now we must save the galaxy from the consequences of that victory." As the transmission ended, Okafor turned to the assembled leaders. "My friends, the final battle awaits. Let us show the galaxy what humanity truly stands for." In the void of space near Apex Prime, the largest fleet ever assembled in human history dropped out of faster-than-light travel. At its head was the HSS Defiant, battle-scarred but unbowed. On the bridge, Captain Zara Nguyen surveyed the tactical display, her face set in grim determination. "Status report," she commanded. Commander Jake Torres responded, his voice tight with tension. "Hegemony forces are in disarray, Captain. But that energy signature from the planet's surface, it's off the charts. Whatever they've activated down there, it's like nothing we've ever seen." Zara nodded, her mind racing through potential strategies. "And the Prometheus?" Torres hesitated before replying. "Fully charged, Captain. But given what happened at the Star Killer, using it here could have catastrophic consequences." Before Zara could respond, a priority communication came through. Admiral Tanaka's hologram appeared on the bridge, her face etched with the strain of command. "Captain Nguyen, we're out of options. That device on Apex Prime needs to be shut down, or we're looking at the potential collapse of spacetime across the entire galaxy. I need your best team on the ground, now." Zara's eyes hardened with resolve. "Understood, Admiral. I'll leave the team myself." As the hologram winked out, Zara turned to her crew. "Prep a strike team. We're going in." On the surface of Apex Prime, chaos reigned. The once gleaming capital of the hegemony was now a battleground, with desperate hegemony loyalists fighting against both human forces and rebellious subject species. In the heart of the Imperial Palace, High Arbiter Skathar's gelatinous form quivered with a mixture of rage and fear. Before it stood a massive device, pulsing with otherworldly energy. "If we cannot rule the galaxy," Skathar's voice modulator struggled to convey its fury. "Then let it burn. Activate the void catalyst." General Vexcor, his kitten cracked and dulled, stepped forward. "High Arbiter, please. This madness must end. The device could destroy everything, including us." Skathar's form rippled with malevolent glee. Better oblivion than submission to these human upstarts. Activated. Now. As Vexicor reluctantly moved to comply, the doors to the chamber burst open. Captain Zarin Nguyen led a team of heavily armed human soldiers into the room, their weapons trained on the hegemony leaders. "Step away from the device," Zara commanded, her voice ringing with authority. Skithar's form pulsed with hatred. "You're too late, human. The void catalyst is already activating. Soon, the very fabric of space-time will unravel. Your victory will be as empty as the void that awaits us all." Zara's mind raced, assessing the situation. The device was indeed powering up, reality itself seeming to warp around it. They had seconds, maybe minutes, before catastrophe struck. "Science team, talk to me," she barked into her comm. "How do we shut this thing down?" The response came back, tinged with panic. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. We can't. Wait. There's a pattern to the energy fluctuations. If we could introduce a counter-frequency, we might be able to create a destructive interference pattern." Zara's eyes widened as realization struck. "The Prometheus. We use the Prometheus." She turned to her team. "Get that data to the Defiant. Tell them to recalibrate the Prometheus to match these energy signatures." As her orders were relayed, Zara faced the hegemony leaders. Skithar's form roiled with impotent rage, while Vexicor stood silent, his compound eyes unreadable. "It's over," Zara said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Your empire has fallen. But it doesn't have to end in destruction. Help us shut this down, and we can work towards a new future, one of cooperation, not domination." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, to everyone's surprise, General Vexicor stepped forward. "Enough," he said, his mandibles clicking softly. "Too much has been lost already. I will help you deactivate the void catalyst." As Vexicor moved to the device's controls, Skithar's form pulsed with fury. "Traitor," it shrieked. "I'll see you all burn." In a sudden burst of movement, Skithar lunged for the device. Zara reacted instantly, diving to intercept. Human and alien grappled at the foot of the void catalyst, its energies building to a crescendo around them. Just as it seemed the device would detonate, a beam of pure energy lanced down from the sky. The Defiant had fired the recalibrated Prometheus weapon directly at the void catalyst. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing, the energies of the Prometheus and the void catalyst collided. A blinding flash of light engulfed the chamber. When it faded, the void catalyst was gone, along with a significant portion of the Imperial Palace. In its place was nothing, the perfectly spherical void, as if that section of space had simply ceased to exist. Zara picked herself up, ears ringing and vision blurry. She looked around, taking stock of her team. They were battered but alive. Of Skithar, there was no sign. General Vexicor, who had been thrown clear of the blast, slowly rose to his feet. He regarded Zara with a mixture of awe and resignation. "It seems," he said softly, "that the age of the hegemony is truly over." Zara nodded, her expression solemn. "But it doesn't have to be the end. Your knowledge, your experience, we'll need it to help stabilize the galaxy. Will you help us?" Vexicor was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended a clawed hand. "For the sake of all species, I will." As Zara clasped the alien general's hand, she couldn't help but feel that this moment, this choice to reach out in cooperation rather than conquest, was perhaps humanity's greatest victory. In the days and weeks that followed, the galaxy saw changes on a scale not witnessed in millennia. The galactic hegemony, which had stood for eons, crumbled. In its place, a new order began to emerge. Led by Earth, but with input from countless species, the Galactic Cooperative was born. It was not an empire, but a forum for interstellar cooperation and mutual defense. Former subject species, now free to chart their own destinies, brought new perspectives and technologies to the table. The scars left by the war were deep. The vast voids created by the Prometheus weapon and the void catalyst served as stark reminders of the dangers of unchecked power. Teams of scientists from across the galaxy worked tirelessly to understand and mitigate the damage done to the fabric of space-time. On Earth, in the newly constructed Hall of Unity, President Okafor addressed the first gathering of the Galactic Cooperative. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, their diversity a testament to the new era of cooperation. Friends, allies, fellow sentients, Okafor began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. We stand here today, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as equals. The hegemony's fall has given us all a chance to build something new, something better. She gestured to the assembled representatives. Each of us brings unique strengths, unique perspectives to this alliance. Together, we can face challenges that would overwhelm any single species. Together, we can explore the mysteries of the universe, push the boundaries of science, and ensure a future of prosperity for all. Okafor's eyes swept the chamber, meeting the gazes of beings from across the galaxy. But we must also remember the lessons of the past. The power we wield, the power to reshape worlds, to tear holes in the fabric of space itself, it comes with grave responsibility. We must be better than those who came before us. We must be guardians, not conquerors. As she spoke, a holographic display activated behind her, showing the vast expanse of the galaxy. Tiny points of light represented member worlds of the new cooperative, forming a web of alliances that spanned the stars. The road ahead will not be easy, Okafor continued. There are wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, and great challenges to overcome. But I have faith in humanity and in all of you. Together, we will forge a future brighter than any single species could imagine. As applause filled the chamber, Okafor couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. Humanity had faced its greatest trial and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. They had brought down an empire and helped birth a new era of galactic cooperation. The future was uncertain, filled with both promise and peril. But as Okafor looked out at the assembled representatives of a united galaxy, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity had found its place among the stars, and together with their new allies, they would face whatever challenges the universe had in store. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again.